Hello everyone, this is Jan with Photography for Beginners. Today a short video to show you from RAW to JPEG how I work with image file in Photoshop without using Lightroom. It can be useful sometimes. Sometimes people just want to use Lightroom, and sometimes you're in a hurry, you just want to quick edit, or you decided that for some reason Lightroom is not going to be part of your workflow. So some things we're going to see in that video are actually very important to consider, and I hope it's going to be useful. Let's go ahead and edit that file into Adobe Photoshop CC. You know that window, it's the first one we get when we need to develop a RAW file. So we get the exposure, control, contrast, and whatnot. We can make different adjustments here. I'm not going to spend much time here. And once I've done this, I end up with a image file that is represented as a DNG file. What you need to understand at that point, the image is a temporary file. It is not saved on disk yet. So what I like to do is, right after opening my raw file, is save it with the save option here. And what I do is I use a Photoshop file format, which is a format that lets me keep all the layers and adjustments that I do in the image, and it lets me go back to it later on if I need. So that's my PSD file format, and let's just, for example, add an adjustment layer, for example, for hue and saturation. It's just a way for me to show you that with the different format, you don't necessarily keep the settings around. So I've done my adjustment. I give a little pinky look to it. I just save it, and what it is now, it's a PSD file that is saved in the same folder as the raw file here, but it's not something I can post on the internet. So I consider I'm done with my edits, but maybe I want to go back to these edits later. So what I need is a JPEG representation of that file to be able to post on Facebook, for example. You have two ways to do this. There's one way that is just go into File, Save As JPEG, but wait a minute here. You see here there's a checkbox that says, okay, I'm going to embed the color profile that's ProPhoto RGB. This is not good to distribute your image or post to people for just be able to see on a computer. I think today Facebook makes a pretty good job. They do a pretty good job at converting the color profile to something that's more compliant with whatever people are using, the smartphone and computers. But that's, as a general rule, that's something you want to avoid. ProPhoto RGB is a very wide representation of the RGB spectrum, and you want something much more smaller than that the computer can represent on internet in a standard and basic image viewer. So we need to fix this. One way to fix this is to go into the edit menu and convert to profile sRGB. But that's a lot of work, and once I've done that, I can save as my image, but now I've changed the profile to sRGB. That's not necessarily the profile I want to keep to work with my images. So I'm just going to cancel that and show you another method to export the file as a web compliant version. So that export option is in the export menu, and it's export as. That's a Photoshop menu that lets you, in that window, check that box, convert to sRGB. So it does the job, but it lets you adjust a lot of parameters. It's really a great option. You can change the file format here. You can adjust the JPEG quality. You can adjust the size of the image here. For example, for Facebook, I like to render as a 2048 pixel size on the long edge. So I can change that here, and it's not going to have any impact on the original picture I'm working with. You see that's a different window. It's going to save the file as a different version. So that's what happens here. Don't forget to check that box, export all, and then I can get the file ready to post on internet. It's much smaller, that's perfect for Facebook, and now I have different versions of my file. I still have my raw file here that's unchanged. You can never change the raw file. That's something you might want to understand. I have my PSD file that I can go back to at any time if I need to change my edits, and I have my sRGB file that I named here. And what happens if I want to open that file in Photoshop, I see there's no layers anymore. So I need to use that PSD file to go back to my edits and do adjustments. Okay, I hope that's been useful, and I hope you have a little bit of a understanding of the different steps involved when editing images, a little bit of information about the color profiles. Just what you need to understand is that when you export an image, you need to export that image as a sRGB color profile, which is not the same thing as the image mode RGB or CMYK here. Maybe that's going to be for another video. Thanks everyone for watching, and you can always post your question in the comment section and I'm going to answer everyone. Bye bye.